So let's say you meet someone. You hit it off, you exchange numbers. Great. Are you friends now? Well, not quite. Or when you see groups of friends laughing together and think, how did they even find each other? You're not alone in this. And no, it's not because something's wrong with you. Making friends as an adult is genuinely harder than it used to be. This isn't just your perception. Research from the Survey Center on American Life found that the number of Americans who say they have no close friends has quadrupled since 1990. 4 times as many people. 4. That's not a coincidence. Something real has shifted. And here's the worst part. It feels like a personal failure. You look around and assume everyone else has it figured out. Spoiler alert, they don't. Most people are quietly struggling with the exact same thing. They're just not talking about it because, well, admitting you're lonely as an adult feels embarrassing. Like you missed some crucial life skill everyone else mastered. But hey, loneliness isn't a character flaw. It's a response to a world that's structurally different from the one humans evolved in. Your difficulty making friends? It says more about modern life than it does about you. Think back to when friendship felt easy. Middle school, high school, maybe college. You didn't have to try. Friends just happened. You sat next to someone in class, you both hated the same teacher, and boom, suddenly you had plans every weekend. So what changed? Well, actually, the invisible architecture of friendship disappeared. In school, everything was set up perfectly for connection. You saw the same people every single day. You were stuck in the same building for hours. You had shared struggles, like that impossible math test or that terrible cafeteria food. And you had time. Tons of unstructured time where you could just exist around each other without it being weird. Then adult life hit. Suddenly you're commuting alone, working in different places, coming home exhausted. Your schedule is packed, but with things that don't involve other people. And when you do have free time, you're too tired to use it. The supports that made friendship automatic, repeated exposure, shared context, unplanned interactions, they all vanished. And no one told you that you'd have to rebuild all of that from scratch. You're not bad at friendship, you just lost the environment that made it easy. Here's something that might sound obvious, but is actually profound. Most of your closest friendships happened because you were in the same place at the same time. Back in the 1950s, Dr. Leon Festinger studied students in a housing complex at MIT. He found that people were most likely to become friends with whoever lived closest to them. Not who had the most in common, not who had the best personality, just whoever was physically nearby. This is called the proximity effect, and it's one of the most powerful forces in friendship formation. The reason? Repeated, unplanned interactions. You run into someone at the mailbox, then again at the coffee shop, then again in the parking lot. Each tiny interaction builds familiarity, and familiarity builds trust. But here's the problem. Modern life actively works against this. You drive to work alone. You work in isolated cubicles or from home. You order everything online. Your daily routine is designed for efficiency, not connection. So yeah, no wonder making friends feels impossible. You've engineered proximity out of your life without even realizing it. Dr. Jeffrey Hall, a communication studies professor, actually researched how long it takes to make a friend. And the numbers are wild. It takes roughly 50 hours of time together to move from acquaintance to casual friend, 90 hours to become a real friend, and over 200 hours to become close friends. 200 hours. Think about that. That's not a few coffee dates. That's months of consistent contact. And here's the kicker. It's not about quality time early on. It's about quantity. You need exposure. Lots of it. You need to see someone in different contexts, different moods, different situations. That's how trust builds. But most adults don't have 200 spare hours lying around, right? You're lucky if you can grab lunch once a month. So friendships stall out before they even begin. Not because you don't like each other. Just because there's no time to let the bond actually form. Remember how easy it was to bond with classmates during finals week, or with co-workers during a brutal project deadline? There's a reason for that, Developmental psychology shows that friendships form faster when there's shared context, especially shared struggle. When you're going through something difficult alongside someone else, it creates an automatic bond. You're in the trenches together. You kind of understand each other's stress without having to explain it. This is why work friends used to be so common. You spend 40 hours a week solving the same problems, dealing with the same boss, navigating the same office drama. Instant shared context. But now, a lot of us work remotely or in jobs where everyone's doing something different. There's no collective experience, no shared goal beyond get through the day, so that natural bonding opportunity just doesn't exist anymore. And outside of work, well, most adult activities are designed for individuals. You go to the gym alone. You run errands alone. You watch Netflix alone. There's no built-in reason to struggle through something together, which means there's no easy path to connection. Now, if you're a guy watching this, there's an extra layer to all of this, because men and women tend to bond differently, and modern life has made male friendship especially difficult. Dr. Niobe Way spent years researching how boys' friendships change as they grow up, and what she found is pretty striking. Young boys, like in elementary school, they're emotionally open with their friends. They talk about feelings. They're affectionate. They say things like, "I love you, man," without thinking twice. But something shifts around adolescence. Cultural messaging kicks in. Suddenly being too close with another guy feels weird, risky even. There's this fear of being seen as weak, or worse, not masculine enough. So guys start putting up walls, they stop sharing emotions. They need a reason to hang out, like watching a game or playing video games. This is why so many men bond through activities rather than conversation. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. Doing things together creates connection. But it also means male friendships often lack the emotional depth that comes from actually talking about what's going on inside. Here's what happens. By the time you're in your 20s or 30s, you've learned to keep things surface level with other guys. You talk about work, sports, maybe some jokes, but vulnerability, admitting you're struggling, that feels off limits. And the culture reinforces this. We joke about bromances, like male closeness is something to laugh at. We act like needing emotional support from friends is something only women do. So men end up isolated, even when they're surrounded by people. The cost of this is real. Studies show that men report feeling lonelier than women, especially as they age, because they've lost the ability to build emotionally intimate friendships. They have buddies to grab a beer with, sure, but no one they can actually talk to when life gets hard. And then, when a guy does try to open up, it feels so foreign that it's uncomfortable for everyone. Because we're all out of practice. We've spent decades learning to not do this. So even when you want deeper connection, you don't know how to get there anymore. Okay, so here's the trap you're stuck in. To actually become close with someone, you need to open up. You need to share something real, something that's not just small talk about the weather or last night's game. But opening up is risky. What if they think you're weird? What if they don't get it? What if you share too much too soon and scare them off? Dr. Arthur Aron, a psychologist who studied intimacy, found that self-disclosure is one of the main drivers of closeness. When you share something personal and the other person responds well, it builds trust. And then they share something back. And slowly you go deeper. But here's the catch. Someone has to go first. Someone has to take the risk. And most people are waiting for the other person to do it. So you both stay surface level, waiting for a signal that never comes. And honestly, the fear of being too much is real, especially for guys. You've been taught your whole life that sharing feelings makes you weak. So even when you want to connect, there's this voice in your head saying, "Don't be dramatic, keep it light." They don't want to hear about your problems. But that voice is lying to you. Most people actually want deeper connection. They're just as tired of small talk as you are. They're just waiting for someone else to break the ice. Now add social media into the mix, and everything gets even more complicated. Because now you're not just managing real-life interactions. You're also managing how you appear online. Everyone's highlight reel is on display. Everyone looks like they've got it together. They're traveling, they're at parties, they've got friend groups that look effortless. And you're sitting there thinking, what am I doing wrong? But here's the truth. Those people are performing too, They're curating their life to look good. They're posting the one fun night they had this month and making it seem like that's their everyday. No one's posting about the loneliness, or the Friday nights spent alone, or the group chats that went silent. And the worst part? This performance bleeds into real life. You meet someone new, and instead of just being yourself, you're trying to be the best version of yourself. The version that's interesting enough, funny enough, successful enough. You're worried about saying the wrong thing or coming across as boring. But that's exhausting, right? And it's not real connection. It's just two people performing for each other, hoping the other person buys it. No wonder friendships feel shallow. You're not actually getting to know each other. You're getting to know each other's highlight reels. Look, small talk has its place. It's a social lubricant. It helps you ease into a conversation without pressure. It's safe, it's comfortable, but if you never move past it, you're stuck. You can have 100 surface-level conversations with someone and still feel like strangers. Because small talk doesn't build intimacy. It builds familiarity, sure, but not closeness. The problem is most people don't know when or how to go deeper. There's no manual for this. You can't just suddenly say, hey, so what are your deepest fears? In the middle of talking about traffic. That's weird. And let's be real for a second. Even if you meet someone you genuinely like, there's still a massive problem. You're exhausted. You work all day, you come home drained, you've got errands, chores, maybe a relationship or family obligations, and by the time you have free time, you don't want to socialize. You want to collapse on the couch and do absolutely nothing. This isn't laziness. This is just modern life, you know. We're all running on empty, trying to keep up with a million demands. Friendship becomes one more thing on the to-do list. And when you're already overwhelmed, it's the first thing to get cut. But here's the trap. Friendship requires energy up front before it gives energy back. And scheduling friendship feels wrong, right? Like, shouldn't this be spontaneous? Shouldn't it feel natural? Well, maybe. But in adult life, if you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. Your calendar doesn't magically clear itself. You have to make friendship a priority, even when it feels like one more obligation. Okay, so you've decided to make an effort. Great. Now comes the scariest part. Actually reaching out. Someone has to make the first move. Someone has to text, hey, want to grab a drink? Or we should hang out sometime. And that someone is probably going to be you, because everyone else is waiting too. But what if they say no? What if they're busy? What if they ghost you? That rejection, even potential rejection, it stings. Especially if you're already dealing with social anxiety or low self-esteem. Every unanswered text feels like confirmation that you're not worth people's time. Here's the thing though, most people want connection but are terrible at showing it. They're not ignoring you because they don't like you. They're overwhelmed, distracted, or assuming you're not actually serious. The belief that if they wanted to hang out, they'd reach out is killing potential friendships before they start. So yeah, you have to be the one who initiates. Multiple times. Because one invite isn't enough. People are busy. They forget. Life gets in the way. If you give up after one try, you'll assume they're not interested, when really they just didn't prioritize it in that moment. It's annoying, I know, but that's how it works. Friendship in adulthood requires persistence. Not in a creepy way, just in a, hey, I'm still here and still want to connect way. And then there's this. Even when you do find people you click with, life has a way of pulling you apart. When you're in different life stages, connection gets harder. You're single, they're married, you're child-free, they've got toddlers, you're focused on your career, they're trying to figure out a career change. The things you're dealing with don't overlap anymore. So even when you do hang out, it feels like you're speaking different languages. Geography is brutal too. Even if someone lives 30 minutes away, that distance is enough to kill a friendship. Because let's meet halfway sounds reasonable until you factor in traffic, scheduling, and the fact that you're both exhausted. So weeks turn into months. Months turn into we should really catch up soon texts that never actually turn into plans. This is one of the hardest parts, honestly. It's not that you stopped caring about each other. It's just that life made staying connected way harder than it used to be. And no one really prepared you for that. You thought good friendships would just last, but they don't, not without effort. And sometimes, even with effort, they just fade. Alright, so we've talked about all the problems. Now, let's talk about what actually works. Remember the proximity effect we mentioned earlier? You need to recreate that. You need to put yourself in situations where you see the same people repeatedly. Not once, not occasionally, but regularly. This means joining things that meet consistently. A weekly basketball game. A book club that meets every month. A climbing gym you go to on the same days. Volunteer work on Saturdays. It doesn't really matter what it is as long as it's recurring. Because here's the thing, one-off events don't build friendship. You go to a party, you meet someone cool, you exchange numbers, and then nothing. There's no natural next step. But when you're in the same space every week, the next step is built in. You see them again, and slowly familiarity turns into friendship. This is what sociologists call third places. Not home, not work, but a third location where you show up regularly and see familiar faces. Coffee shops are perfect for this. Neighborhood bars, community centers. But people are busy and have their own schedule. So you have to intentionally create them for yourself. And look, I know this sounds like a lot of effort, and it is, but it's the only way proximity works in adult life. You can't wait for it to happen naturally anymore. You have to engineer it. Okay, so you've got proximity. You're seeing the same people regularly. Now what? Now you start opening up, slowly. This isn't about trauma dumping on someone you barely know. It's about progressive vulnerability. You share something a little personal. Then you see how they respond. Dr. Brené Brown's research on connection shows that vulnerability is the birthplace of intimacy. But it has to be reciprocal. You share, they share, back and forth. Like a conversation, not a monologue. So what does this look like in practice? Maybe you mentioned you're having a rough week at work. Not complaining, just being real. If they respond with empathy or share their own struggle, that's a good sign. You've cracked the door open a bit. If they're reciprocating, keep going. If not, that's okay. Not everyone is capable of or interested in deeper connection. And that's fine. You're looking for the people who are. But here's the key. You have to be willing to go first. Most of the time, the other person is also waiting for permission to be real. When you show vulnerability, you're giving them that permission. You're saying, it's safe to drop the act here. Here's something important. Early friendships are supposed to feel casual. They're not supposed to be deep and meaningful right away. That comes later. If you go into every interaction expecting an instant best friend, you're going to be disappointed. Friendship is a slow build. It starts with casual hangouts. Then it becomes regular hangouts. Then it becomes, I can call this person when I need something. Then it becomes real closeness. Too many people give up too early because the friendship doesn't feel right immediately. But that's not how it works. You're building something from scratch. Of course, it's going to feel a little awkward at first. That's normal. The goal isn't to find your soulmate friend in the first hangout. The goal is to find people you don't mind being around, people who show up, people who seem interested in getting to know you. That's enough to start. The depth comes with time. Here's something that might take pressure off. You don't need a ton of friends. You really don't. Some people thrive with a huge social circle. They love being around people constantly, but if that's not you, that's completely fine. Quality beats quantity every single time. Research on social connection shows that even having just one or two close friends significantly improves your mental health and life satisfaction. You don't need 15 best friends. You need people who actually get you. People you can be yourself around. And honestly, different friendships serve different purposes. Some friends are great for deep conversations. Some are great for doing activities with. Some are just fun to be around when you need a laugh. They don't all have to be everything. There's also real value in what sociologists call weak ties. These are acquaintances. The guy you chat with at the gym, the co-worker you grab lunch with occasionally, the person you see at that weekly meetup. They're not close friends, but they still provide connection. They still make you feel less alone. There's another way to make friends. Not a new one, but reconnecting with old ones. Think about people you used to be close with but drifted apart from. Not because of a fight or anything dramatic, just because life got busy and you stopped talking. Those people already know you. You've already have trust and history. Reaching out feels awkward, I know. You think, it's been 2 years, they probably don't even think about me anymore. What if they don't respond? But here's the thing, most of the time, people are happy to hear from you. They've probably thought about reaching out too, but didn't for the exact same reasons. There's this phenomenon where old friends can pick up right where they left off, even if it's been years, because the foundation is still there. You skip past all the small talk and get straight to the good stuff. Now let's talk about the internet for a second, because online spaces get a bad rap when it comes to friendship. People say, real friendship happens in person. And sure, face-to-face connection is important, but online communities can be a legitimate starting point. If you are into something specific, gaming, fitness, photography, whatever, there are online communities full of people who share that interest. And those spaces can lead to real friendships. You start chatting in a Discord server, you join voice calls, you play games together or work on projects together. And eventually you realize you've built something real. The key is transitioning from online to offline when possible. Meeting up in person solidifies the connection in a way that digital interaction can't fully replicate. But even if you never meet face to face, online friendships can still provide genuine support and connection. This is especially true if you're in a small town or an area where it's hard to find your people. The internet lets you connect with people all over the world who get you in ways your neighbors might not. And honestly, that's pretty incredible. So don't dismiss online communities as not real. They're real if they provide real connection. They're real if they make you feel less alone. Use them as a tool. Find your niche, engage authentically, and see where it goes. Look, if you've made it this far, you're probably someone who's been feeling the weight of this for a while. But here's what I need you to understand. You're not broken, you know? Your friendship building muscles just need practice. This is a skill that atrophies without the right environment, and you're starting from a harder position than previous generations had to deal with. That's okay. You don't have to overhaul your entire social life overnight. Just start small. One activity, one person, one conversation where you're a little more real. It doesn't have to be big, just needs to be consistent.